Hey everyone, Nigel and Luke here, and welcome to another edition of Crimes of the Week International. Officials in Italy say that a dangerous mafia boss is finally back in custody this week, a year after he escaped from a maximum security prison, an incident that came as a major embarrassment to authorities. The whole thing began in February of 2023 when Marco Raduano broke out of the maximum security facility where he was being held in the city of Nuoro on the Italian island of Sardinia. While most of the details of the escape are unclear, we know how it finished thanks to now infamous footage taken from prison security cameras, which show him scaling down the complex's walls on a rope made of knotted bed sheets. After a long drop to the ground below, he gets up and runs off. Understandably, the escape left authorities red-faced, especially because Raduano was a high-profile inmate. He is reportedly a boss with the Foggia crime syndicate, sometimes referred to as Italy's Fourth Mafia. While not as well known as other infamous crime groups in Sicily, Calabria, and Naples, the Fourth Mafia is considered by officials to be the most violent crime syndicate currently in operation in the country today. Raduano himself was supposed to be serving a 24-year prison sentence for drug trafficking and weapons-related offenses. He has also been accused of the murders of two men in separate incidents in 2017. This week, it was announced that after a year, the 40-year-old fugitive had finally been tracked down and arrested. He was taken into custody in Aleria, a community on the French island of Corsica just north of Sardinia. At the time, Raduano was enjoying a meal at a restaurant with a young woman. Authorities say that he had been living in the area with false identity documents and driving a falsely registered stolen vehicle. He had been keeping a low profile by living frugally. At the same time, police announced that they had also arrested Raduano's right-hand man, Gianluigi Troiano, who had also been on the run since September of 2021. Troiano was picked up in southern Spain in a small town near the city of Granada. At the time of this recording, both men are awaiting extradition back to Italy, where they will continue serving their lengthy prison sentences. Authorities in France say that a young man is in custody this week following an embarrassing gaffe in which he accidentally left his phone at the scene of a crime, then tried to call to get it back. According to reports, the whole thing started sometime on February 2nd when the suspect, a minor who has not been identified by name, was committing a burglary at an apartment in the Paris suburb of Colombes. He was right in the middle of the crime when the owner of the place came home, causing him to grab what he could and run for it. Though the young suspect was allegedly able to grab the unidentified victim's laptop before fleeing, unfortunately for him, he quickly realized that he had made a mistake. In his haste to escape, he had left behind his phone at the scene. Unbelievably, the suspect called his phone several minutes later and spoke with the person he had just robbed. He offered to return the laptop if he could get his phone back, to which the victim agreed. They then called the police. Obviously, the suspect didn't think this through, because apparently he actually showed back up at the crime scene later that morning. When he did, police were waiting, who placed him under arrest. Authorities in Argentina say that they are investigating the mysterious and terrifying murders of a former altar boy and his elderly aunt this week after they were viciously gunned down outside their home. According to reports, the incident took place at around 10:30 p.m. on February 2nd, when the victims, 46-year-old Herman Zuccarelli and his aunt, 77-year-old Anna Russo, were on their way home in the Buenos Aires suburb of Lanús. They were about 200 yards from their front door when suddenly, a car pulled up next to them on the street. Seconds later, someone unleashed a hail of bullets from inside before speeding off. Though emergency responders rushed to the scene, sadly, Herman and Anna's injuries were too severe. The 46-year-old, who had been shot 6 times, was pronounced dead at the scene, while the 77-year-old, who had been hit 4 times, passed away 2 days later in hospital. The crime has come as a major shock to the local religious community, as Herman was an active participant in the Catholic Church. Despite the brutality of the crime, authorities say that they currently have no idea what motivated it. They are considering the possibility that the killings were a case of mistaken identity. However, there is some evidence that casts doubt on this. In particular, surveillance footage recovered from nearby which reportedly shows the same vehicle at the crime scene about 24 hours earlier. This seems to suggest that whoever was responsible scoped out the victims beforehand. At the time of this recording, police are still investigating the mysterious case and have not released many further details. They say that they are combing through the victims' personal lives, especially Herman's, and hope that this and items like his cell phone may offer vital clues. The situation is still developing. Authorities in Paris, France say that a man is in custody this week after he allegedly carried out a terrifying attack in a busy railway station that left 3 people wounded. The incident unfolded at around 7:35 a.m. on February 3rd at the Gare de Lyon rail station in central Paris. It began when the suspect, identified only as a 31-year-old man from Mali, set fire to the bag that he was carrying in one of the building's large hallways before pulling out a knife and hammer. He allegedly attacked 3 people at random before being overpowered by passers-by who saw what was happening and ran to help. The Good Samaritans were able to hold him until police arrived and placed him under arrest. According to reports, 2 of the victims suffered minor wounds, though sadly, the third sustained serious injuries to their stomach, which are said to be life-threatening. Following the suspect's attack, police reportedly ended their questioning with him after apparently determining that he was experiencing some kind of psychotic episode. They now say that they believe that the attack was primarily mental health related, though other evidence has emerged suggesting there could be a terror-related motive as well. Initially, authorities said that they had found no evidence of such a motive, though it has since been reported that there were videos recovered from his phone and social media where he specifically spoke of wanting to harm French people, as well as his grievances with the country's military. While the suspect's name has not been released at this time, authorities say that he is originally from the northwest African nation of Mali. He was found to have Italian residency papers after being taken into custody and was legally allowed to travel into other European countries. According to reports, he has no prior criminal history and was carrying medication with him that is believed to be related to his mental health condition. At the time of this recording, the suspect has been charged with attempted murder and aggravated assault with a weapon. The situation is still under investigation. If you're a regular viewer of our Crimes of the Week International series, then you'll probably remember that last week we brought you the strange story of Satoshi Kirishima. Kirishima had been wanted since the mid-1970s for his role in a string of bombings committed by the left-wing terror group that he was a part of. However, after nearly 50 years on the run, he revealed himself to authorities at the end of last month, only to die just a few days later. As frustrating as that whole situation was for investigators, it seems that this week there might be a little bit of redemption, after the press coverage surrounding the whole situation with Kirishima incidentally led to the capture of another fugitive, one who is very much alive. You may remember that in last week's episode, we mentioned that Kirishima's photo had been circulated around Japan for quite some time on wanted posters. Well, it turns out that one of these wanted posters got so much airtime on Japanese television that people started recognizing the photo of the guy next to Kirishima as well. His name is Shigeyuki Kin, a 55-year-old member of an organized crime group wanted for attempted murder in connection with a shooting in Nagano Prefecture in 2020. According to reports, police started getting calls about Kin after his photo just happened to be next to Kirishima's in the most popular wanted poster displayed by the media. These calls led to the 55-year-old being tracked down and arrested on February 1st at a building in the city of Sendai. Apparently, Kin was keeping an extremely low profile, and the building in question is actually owned by a company affiliated with his criminal organization. So police say that if it weren't for this happy coincidence, it's likely he wouldn't have been found. The revelation has reportedly led to widespread interest from the Japanese public, many of whom are now calling for police to display wanted posters more often on television following the successful arrest. At the time of this recording, Kin remains in custody, and police say that further charges could be laid against his associates. Authorities in the southern Thai province of Narathiwat say that a 28-year-old man is facing charges this week, following a bizarre incident in which he allegedly tried to steal a farm animal while drunk, only to have his harebrained scheme quickly backfire. According to reports, the whole thing began sometime on February 2nd, when police were called to the scene of an accident in Su-ngai Padi district. Officers arrived to find a silver sedan lying in a ditch at the side of a local road, which was smashed up and had rolled fully onto one side. Police quickly turned their attention to the 28-year-old driver, a man named Mustaqim May. He had managed to escape the wreckage with only minor injuries, though was quite clearly under the influence of alcohol. Understandably, authorities initially thought they were dealing with an open and shut drunk driving case. That was, until they noticed something else. Peering out through the smashed back window of the overturned vehicle was the head of a very confused black cow. When asked about the cow, May said that the animal belonged to his father-in-law, who had given it to him a little while earlier. He said that all he had to transport the cow was his small car, so he tried to make the best of what he had. May's wife arrived shortly thereafter and backed up her husband's story. The situation got even stranger, though, when a local farmer named Kla ran up to the scene and said that May and his wife were lying. He claimed that the cow belonged to him and that May had stolen it after he let the animal out to graze in his field. At this point, May apparently began changing his story, telling officers that he never meant to steal the cow. He now claimed that he had been driving when he encountered the animal blocking the roadway. The situation made him angry, so naturally he decided the best course of action was to cram the cow into the back of his sedan and take it home. May said the animal got scared while he was driving, and that was why he lost control of the vehicle. Police were apparently not convinced by May's shifting stories and ended up charging him with stealing property belonging to a farmer. If convicted, he could be looking at a sentence of up to 5 years, as well as a fine of between 20,000 and 100,000 baht, or about $560 to $2,800 US. In case you were wondering, it appears that the cow involved in the incident was unharmed. Authorities in the Australian state of Queensland say that 5 teenagers are facing charges this week, following the senseless and tragic murder of an elderly woman, a crime that was allegedly committed in an attempt to steal her car. According to reports, the situation unfolded just after 6 p.m. on February 3rd, when the victim, 70-year-old Vilene White, had just finished up an afternoon of shopping with her 6-year-old granddaughter at the Town Square Redbank Plains shopping centre in the Brisbane suburb of Redbank Plains. The grandmother and granddaughter were getting ready to leave and had just walked back to Vilene's car, which she had left in an underground parking garage, when they were allegedly ambushed by multiple suspects. Though the exact details of what happened next have not been released, the situation allegedly ended with Vilene being stabbed in the chest. The suspects then took the 70-year-old's car, leaving her grievously injured on the ground. A doctor named Adamola Afolabi, who happened to be nearby and heard the commotion, ran to Vilene's aid and attempted to save her life. However, sadly, she soon died as a result of her injuries. The doctor told the media that the entire thing happened right in front of Vilene's granddaughter. After stealing the 70-year-old's Hyundai Getz, which authorities now say was the only reason for the awful crime, the suspects apparently drove it for just 20 minutes. 4 of them were later captured on surveillance video abandoning the car in the suburb of Springfield Lakes. When news of the disturbing incident was released, the public was quick to submit a flood of tips to investigators. The next day, the first suspect, a 15-year-old boy, reportedly turned himself in. According to reports, he was not involved in the actual attack and instead rode in the car after the incident. 4 other teens, ranging in age from 15 to 16, were arrested after that, with a couple of them reportedly being turned in by their parents. At the time of this recording, 4 of the 5 suspects are facing charges related to the stolen car, including unlawful use of a motor vehicle. The remaining suspect has been charged with murder, unlawful use of a motor vehicle, and stealing. Currently, police say that they have not ruled out other charges in connection with the incident, and that more arrests may follow. None of the suspects have been identified due to their ages. Vilene's family, meanwhile, are understandably heartbroken about her sudden and tragic death. In an interview, her daughter described her as, quote, the most loving, compassionate, and caring person you could ever meet. Vilene leaves behind children, grandchildren, and a husband of 50 years. Representatives from England's London Metropolitan Police say that they are searching for a dangerous suspect this week, following a horrifying chemical attack against a mother and her 2 young daughters. The whole thing started at around 7:25 p.m. on January 31st, when the 3 victims, identified only as a 31-year-old mother and her daughters, ages 3 and 8, were allegedly ambushed in South London's Clapham district. Witnesses saw what they first thought was a minor car crash before hearing screams and realizing that multiple people were under attack. While the exact details of the crime still appear to be fuzzy, according to most of the reports we came across, it began when the attacker, later identified as 35-year-old Abdul Azidi, ran up to a vehicle that the 3 victims were traveling in. He then doused them in a corrosive alkaline liquid, one that was highly concentrated, and immediately began to cause chemical burns on any skin it came in contact with. According to reports, Azidi continued the attack by pulling the youngest victim from the car and throwing her to the ground multiple times. Witnesses described the sickening assault as akin to the child being thrown around like a rag doll. After realizing the gravity of the situation, multiple Good Samaritans came to the family's aid. At least 2 tackled Azidi to the ground, while another woman grabbed the 3-year-old and rushed her to safety. Frustratingly, though, Azidi managed to get away, at first fleeing in his vehicle, but then running on foot after reportedly crashing it close to the scene. Following the incident, a number of people were taken to the hospital to be treated for injuries. According to police, at least 12 in total were injured as a result of the attack, a number of whom also sustained chemical burns while trying to help the victims. The 2 young girls are said to be recovering well, though sadly their 31-year-old mother will likely suffer life-changing injuries. She has reportedly been sedated in a local hospital since the attack and may lose sight in her right eye. As for the alleged attacker, Abdul Azidi, he is currently the subject of an ongoing manhunt. In the days following the disturbing incident, authorities released a number of pieces of information concerning the 35-year-old's movements. On the day of the attack, he is said to have traveled from his home in Newcastle to London, arriving early in the morning. He was seen driving close to the site of the attack in Clapham shortly before, after which he began fleeing the area. 8 minutes after the assault, Azidi is said to have boarded the subway at Clapham South Tube Station. He got off just before 7 p.m. at King's Cross. At 8:42, he was captured on CCTV footage at a Tesco store on Caledonia Road, where he purchased a bottle of water. In the footage, he can be seen trying to avoid interacting with staff and customers, and is clearly suffering from injuries to his right eye, likely sustained from the same alkaline substance used in the attack. He boarded the subway again shortly after this, and was last sighted as he left Tower Hill Underground Station at 9:33 p.m. that night. At the time of this recording, police are still desperately searching for the 35-year-old and say that they are currently entertaining 2 major theories. The first is that Azidi is receiving help from 1 or more individuals to remain hidden, and the second is that he is already dead. A £20,000 reward has been offered for any information leading to Azidi's arrest, with authorities saying that anyone caught assisting him will face serious charges. In terms of a motive behind the disturbing crime, little information has been released. The most we know is that Azidi was apparently known to the victims, though the nature of their relationship is unclear. At least one report we came across claimed that the victims may have been hiding from Azidi prior to the attack, though it appears that this has not been confirmed. While the hunt for the 35-year-old has garnered most of the police attention in the past few days, following the release of more information about the suspect's background, many are beginning to question why he was able to commit the crime in the first place. According to reports, Azidi arrived in the UK from Afghanistan in 2016, and his asylum application was rejected twice before finally being accepted the third time. It was only accepted after he claimed that he had converted to Christianity and thus would be a persecuted minority in his home country. However, many are now asking why he wasn't removed from the country before this, after it was revealed that he had been convicted of 2 sexual offenses in early 2018. In January of that year, he pleaded guilty to 2 incidents involving 2 separate women, one of which involved an assault, the other of which involved indecent exposure. Ezidi was given a suspended sentence and was put on the registry for 10 years. Despite this troubling information, those that knew Ezidi claim that they were stunned to hear about these crimes, as well as the horrifying incident this week. They say that they knew the 35-year-old as a quiet man who stayed out of trouble and whose primary concern was sending money back home to his family. One friend, however, claimed that Ezidi had changed after experiencing a traumatic incident sometime in 2017 or 2018. The friend explained in an interview with local media that his family's home had been robbed in Afghanistan and that his sister had been shot dead during the crime. Ezidi apparently cried for weeks afterwards and allegedly vowed to seek revenge on those that had killed his sister. At the time of this recording, authorities are asking for any members of the public who might have any information about this week's tragic incident to please come forward. The situation is still developing. Before we wrap up, we'd like to take a second to give a huge shout out to everyone who has made it this far into the video. Seriously, thank you so much for watching. If you found today's upload interesting and informative, we'd be honored if you'd consider liking and subscribing, as well as hitting the notification bell and selecting all notifications to stay up to date with our latest releases. If you're looking for additional ways to help support the channel, we'd love to have you join us over on Patreon. Patrons get ad-free and early access to all of our content, as well as 4 additional stories per week for each of our Crimes of the Week and Crimes of the Week International videos. You can learn more at patreon.com/crimezone, where you'll also find some of the fine folks whose names are currently on screen. All that being said, we understand that not everyone has the means to support financially, and that's totally okay. We appreciate every like, sub, share, and comment that you send our way. Once again, thanks so much everyone, and take care.